What's your name?
Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss from Jews United Against Zionism.
But has it occurred to you that your position feeds a lot of the Jew hatred in the world because of their anti-Israelism? Which is anti-Semitism.
On the contrary.
Manifested as anti-Israelism.
Anybody, logically speaking, who's not involved in this subject, who doesn't have the preconceptions, will tell you that there is a frustration and it's a buildup of feeling of stifling of the Arab and the Muslim people that the Zionist people can do whatever they would like, and all the Jews agree with this, and therefore they are building up a hate like a pressure cooker against Jews. When Jewish people come up and stand up and say, "Wait, we sympathize, we feel your suffering," and it's not a now name. They don't go out and get more angry at Jews. They don't go out and say, we're going to randomly shoot Jews. They say, oh, if that's the case, then I have to think twice about doing anything to a Jewish person, because who says that he is a Zionist? Now I'm beginning to understand, they say, that my grandparents were able to coexist with the Jewish people, because I see there's two types of Jews. There's a Jew who is a moral Jew, a Jew who upholds his religion, which is something to be lauded and respected. So therefore their animosity melts away, and that is logic. And I've spoken to people in the United Nations. We're doing this for 25 years and more, and everybody agrees that that is the purely logical stance. Anybody who could come and say that it encourages killing Jews or hate of Jews is totally misled and not looking at reality.
The haters actually use your appearances, your statements to justify.
Who is the haters?
I'm saying Jew haters.
Jew haters use our statements.
Use your statements to legitimize how wicked the Jews are because of what they're doing in Palestine and in Israel.
Excuse me. There is thousands of imams who are out there condemning Jews and saying that it's punishable by death for what they're doing to the Palestinian people according to the Quran. I've heard it and you've heard it. And they don't need a rabbi to condone what it says in the Quran. Now, the only thing that we possibly could do,
what
are you saying?
I'm saying that if his mother, like my mother, went to Auschwitz and got killed, what do they know?
You're going to go another time to the Holocaust conference.
You're going to go to another time?
Till when the Zionist state going to become dismantled, we're going to go another time. Yeah, because the Zionists bring the Holocaust.
Their position is they say when God is going to come, then we're going to have Israel. They're idiots.
Never said that.
They had no right to exist even.
Never said that.
Yes, you do say. The red Yiddish to me.
I'm speaking English, so he should understand.
I come from a father with a head, with a strammel, with a cup.
Your father wouldn't have brought you
my father gave him geld for AIPAC.
Oh, please.
My father gave him geld for AIPAC.
What chassid was he? What rabbi?
Vishnitzer Rabbi for Shulam in 1945. Vishnitzer Rebbe hat mich en ich zum Motteling, am Monzi, jede 3 Monate a check.
Their motto was learned in Satmar, and he was anti-Zionist, so please.
Don't tell me, because Mottele gekommen mir, wenn ich bin gesetzt, Shiva. Wenn mein Vater gestorben ist, Mottele zu mir gekommen. Mein Vater ist bei der Wischnitzer Society, der Wischnitzer.
Let's stop talking about yeshivas for a minute.
Right, go ahead.
Where are these guys mistaken?
These guys, they live in a dream world. What are you talking? They live in a dream world. God will come. God came already because we have a country. God came already and we have a country. Thank God for this.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the misconstruing of what all Judaism is about. Theodor Herzl, somebody who announced that he's not circumcising his son. Theodor Herzl, who announced he's not circumcising his son, who spoke about that the solution to Judaism to convert to Christianity, and that is God's messengers for redemption. Theodor Herzl said they should go to Uganda, that they should make it in Argentina, and then when he realized he won't get back, he turned to Palestine and use Jewish symbols. Please, these aren't the messages of God of our redemption. And it happens to be clear that we are forbidden to have a state. And getting back to the subject that you turned away in the middle of our answering, well, anyway, basically, again, it's clear that anybody who thinks logically and who looks at the facts on the ground in reality realizes that the imams and all the people who speak about doing harm to Jewish people, God forbid, is they do not need any encouragement from any rabbi. They have thousands and thousands of imams because of what Zionism does. The only thing that we can accomplish when we get up there is to stop the bloodshed, and we do, because in Al Jazeera television, which was here today, and their biggest programs and their loudest speakers, whether it would be Karadawi or Sheikh Karadawi or every one of their leaders, when they get up and they say we should know that our opinions are changed about Jewish people, because they realize, in fact, the Malaysian former Prime Minister just spoke in London. He said there's hope on this world because there are Jews like this, and they're the ones who can incite people are the ones who are taking away the hate from the Jewish people, because they realize that there are Jews who are not Zionists, and that is a fact on the ground. We don't cause bloodshed, but if you will turn to Zionists, you can count how many tens and tens of thousands of Jews died because of the state. Look at the cemeteries of the soldiers alone. Show me one Jew who died because of Neturei Karta.
What about Israel as a refuge for those who killed the Jews before the state?
Excuse me?
Israel is a refuge
for those who killed the Jews?
For those Jews who were killed before the establishment of the state, which is one of the reasons the state...
Those who were killed are dead already. I don't understand what you're asking. You meant something else.
Well, without a refuge...
Yes.
You're saying Zionism is responsible for the killings.
That is correct.
But who's responsible for killing the Jews?
Again, the Jewish people throughout the ages have suffered anti-Semitism, and there's a reason. We believe there's a God on this world, and anything that's good or bad that happens to a person, if you're a religious Jewish person, then you believe this concept that there's a God who's ruling this world. And when there's something bad, then we have to repent and look, be introspective, and see how to serve God. If anybody laughs at this whole concept, so they're not religious and they're not Jewish. Now,
if a Holocaust-like happened before, and there's no Jewish refuge, then what?
God warned us that don't think you can escape God's hand by creating your own so-called safe haven, because you can't escape from God. That is not the solution by saying I will rebel against God's commandment. God tells us the way. We're not prophets. We don't understand God's ways. We may not understand the Holocaust, but when somebody dies, God forbid, in the family, a young person, an old person, we make a blessing. Blessed is the God who is righteous, the righteous judge, because we know that we cannot understand God's ways, but we must accept. Now, to say, but the solution will be that I will say that God was sleeping, God forbid, and God is impotent and cannot help us, and we have to create our own safe haven and against the rules of God. There's another ignorance. Speaking about majority, it says clearly in the Torah that you don't go after the majority for something which is against God or for bad. So it's just built on ignorance, Zionism. So this is just another point. In other words, you can't say I'm going to go against God and that's going to be my Judaism. That's contradictory in and of itself. They're saying God, it's rooted in blasphemy. God is sleeping. God is not protecting us. Therefore, we're going to make a Jewish state with the Star of David. Psalms. King David, who made the Psalms, whose whole soul and body was given to God, and saying that I trust in God, coming them, and he said God doesn't sleep. This is all King David's words. Then they make a statement and say, because God is not protecting us, we have to protect us. It's built in blasphemy, in contradiction, in rebellion against God, in a farce. And the oppression of the Palestinian people is built in the same farce, intimidation, waving the Bible to legitimize their nationalism, because they hated God and they want to take God out of the equation. They want to transform Judaism from religion to nationalism, and then they wave the Bible to intimidate, and they ignore what all the rabbinical authorities spoke against Zionism. Because look today, even today, in all the most religious quarters, the more the religious quarters, the more anti-Zionist. Why is that? They give their lives to serve God, and why are they anti-Zionist? Go to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the most concentrated Jewish area in the United States. Go to Jerusalem, Mea Shearim. The more the religious, and they do everything else, they're pious, they do what they can to serve God. Zionism, they totally exclude from their lives. Why? Because this is a rebellion against God, is blasphemy, and will only bring suffering.
If you consider yourselves really sworn to the highest level of Judaism, right? Would you say?
We try.
You're dedicated to the highest level. So, how do you think accepting Muslim money affects your credibility?
Now that question is just shows, which I'm surprised. I thought you were asking as a impartial reporter. That question was thrown, and I don't know if I should lower myself to answer that, because you're saying who took Muslim money? Any of us, we get Muslim money? That's just a Zionist disparaging the religious communities. Excuse me.
You disavow accepting any Muslim money?
We do not get any. This is a lie, a pure Zionist lie. Now, when they'll make a conference and they invite you, sometimes they invite the speakers and they pay the plane tickets, and we do not take honorariums from them. We refuse to take any honorariums. But it's a Zionist propaganda that they say, oh, they're being paid. But let me tell you something. Who is being paid? The Zionist ambassadors. The Zionists are paying here for all the politicians to come here. They pay people to come, and nobody looks at them and says, hey, you're paying people to support the oppression of the Palestinian people. That's tainted money. Nobody brings that subject up. But they bring up that even if we would get money,
say for the record,
even if we would get money from the Palestinian people, excuse me, we do not get any honorariums or support. I'm not going to say there's never a penny taken, because we do get from the conferences that invited a speaker like anybody. We do not get paid. We don't get honorariums from them. That's a fact. And now the fact is that the Zionists, that's just a ploy as they attack and vilify anybody who dares to speak up against them. But they have tainted money. Jewish blood is being spilt, and people proudly take money from them and take their free trips. Every politician to go visit the state of Israel, they get free trips.
And you don't think that anything you're doing is justifying the Jewish blood being spilled?
Excuse me?
The anti-Semitism that's fomented by making it seem like Israel is wicked and immoral?
You seem to not, either you didn't hear or you didn't want to hear. I'm not out to insult you, but we've just basically explained that if there's any cause for the spilling of Jewish blood, it's purely because of Zionism. We were coexisting for hundreds of years. Zionism is the new neighbor to the black that caused this contention, that the mistrust and the bloodshed of Jews. In the Hebron massacre, the rabbis clearly wrote we were coexisting there in total harmony. And we have Rabbi Baruch Kaplan of blessed memory. We have his on our site. You can look it up. You can see that he said we were living in peace, and the Zionists came on with guns, and the rabbis pleaded with them. Rabbi Epstein of blessed memory, the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the dean of the school, he said, get out of it. What are you doing? They said, we came to protect you. He said, woe is on to us, because the Arabs didn't know to differentiate between Judaism and Zionism, and the pogrom happened. We're not in any way condoning what happened, the pogrom, but the root cause of the pogrom, clearly, their hands are tainted in Jewish blood for over 60 years and 100 years. There was a Jewish community living for hundreds of years together. You have all the Jews.
But there were plenty of massacres before the state was declared. Arab
Jews were living in every
murders
in Jerusalem. You can come. We have all the Jews who will tell you about they've been living hundreds of years. This young fellow here, he had his grandmother, and for 6 or 8 generations lived in Jerusalem. And many of the other people we've had, they're alive people today in the 70s and the 80s will tell you how they lived door by door in Jerusalem without any human rights. They babysat each other's children. There was no problem, even though they were deeply religious. The Muslims were deeply religious, and the Jews. What changed? Zionism. They are the sole and pure cause of all the Jewish bloodshed there, and the Muslim and the Christian bloodshed. If nobody wants to...
What about the humiliation of the Jews who lived in the Arab countries? The dimification and the jizya. Well, no, you make it sound like it was a cakewalk for the Jews in the Arab world before Israel.
We're not talking about a cakewalk. We're talking about the fact that there was Jewish communities in every Arab land. We were able to coexist, and it wasn't the Hitler, and it wasn't the extermination camps that would happen in Christian lands. There was not the Crusades, and there wasn't the Spanish Inquisition. We were able to coexist, and nobody said that you can't live amongst in England or in the United States because they're Christians, but the Muslims, they're vilified. Why is that? Because Zionism wants a state. Let's face it what it is.
Did Judaism then and Zionism create radical Islam?
Radical Islam was never a detriment to our living peacefully with them.
Radical Islam like exists in the Arab world today.
What does that have to do with the issue we're talking about?
What does it have to do? The Christians are leaving the country. The Christians are not responsible. The Christians are leaving the Arab countries. The Christians are leaving Lebanon. The Christians are leaving.
You're just trying to confuse the issue.
Not at all.
But I'm
it's the
asking
same
you a
thing.
question. Wait, just wait 1 second. 100 years ago, when there was a very radical Islam, people were very radically Islamic. They didn't have democracy. And Judaism was very, very orthodox, call it radical, although I don't like the terminology. But we were both coexisting, even though we were both radically religious. What's your answer to that?
The answer is very simple. Times have changed.
What has
There's
changed?
a new kind of radical Islam that doesn't want to coexist with you.
Maybe Zionism.
That doesn't want to coexist with Christians.
Maybe the
that doesn't want to
Zionism.
They blew up the remnants of Buddhism in Afghanistan. There were Buddhas there that lived for hundreds of years. Stone.
Okay.
They weren't even
I
live.
have a revelation
They
for
were
you.
blown up.
I have a revelation.
Radical Islam.
No. The Sharia
Radical
Quran
Islam
has not changed.
It's a new world. You're in the old world.
Yeah,
the new
right.
world is radical Islam.
Of course.
You need to get real.
Yeah,
How many mosques were destroyed in Gaza? Do you know? 43.
You know what? How many mosques in Gaza were storing weapons?
Apparently none.
43.
How many